We're here today with actor Brad Kesten. He's been on shows like Diff'rent Strokes, Taxi, Family Ties. He was also the former voice of Charlie Brown. Brad, how you doing today?
Hey, Dustin, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for asking me. I like doing these. I don't do a lot of them, so it's kind of fun when I do a good one. I think I do maybe like 2 a year, maybe at most.
Wow, okay.
Well, yeah, at most. Yeah, I don't want to do too many of them. It's not as much fun. Ask away. I am an open book.
Well, Brad, you started acting at a pretty young age. Can you tell us a bit about that? You know, how it started for you and what got you into the business?
I started when I was, I'd say about 8.5. Interesting kind of the way I got into the business it was kind of a very bizarre thing. We moved from New Jersey to California. And when we first moved here, we kind of did the tourist thing. I think we drove by like Burt Reynolds' house, and my mom and I went to go have lunch at the Universal Studios, the commissary, the backlot commissary, not the tour or anything. And, it's the kind of place you go in and there's those, the sketches of the stars on the wall, that you see. And it's basically all the directors and producers and stars that are working in the studios there. When they go to lunch, that's where they go. So we thought we'd go, looking for stars, that kind of thing. And we walked on the lot through security. Nobody stopped us. I guess at that time you could still go have lunch. And, on the way out, somebody had asked my mom, and I remember this. I don't remember it being a big thing, but asked if I was an actor and if I was famous, or it was something like that. And I think that was the light bulb in my mom's head of, let's give it a shot. And somewhere along the line, she got a hold of a producer, Marty Engels, which is Shirley Jones's husband. And Shirley Jones and Marty Engels gave my mom a list of kids agents in the business, like the really good agents, and sent out a letter and a picture of me, like my little league baseball picture, which was a really cute picture, and sent it out. And I had an agent like a week later, like a really good agent. Wow. And started sending me out, and took couple months, got my first job, got my SAG card, and then I was running. I was off and running, and doing like, I would say 4 days a week. I was going to like 3 to 4 interviews a day, and drama class, commercial class, and whatever kind of classes, kids need to compete. And it's not like today where there's so many kids competing for the same roles. It's crazy now.
Sure.
Now they're all over the country, because all you have to do is just submit, email your stuff in. But at that time, it was a much smaller industry. And I would say I was competing with the same 20 kids. And I think anybody my age, well, not my age, I think anybody that grew up in the industry as a kid will say the same thing, that the same 20 people followed them from place to place, from interview to interview. Because there were like 5 big agents in the industry, and they all had we all looked the same. We had the same like general eyes, hair color, height, weight. And we saw, these are the kids that I grew up with. These are the kids that are actually, like, some of them are my closest friends, because I've known them now since I was 9 years, 8, 9 years old. So they're my lifelong, they're my childhood friends. So it's funny. You see a lot of these actors and they're friends with other famous actors because they grew up with them. These are, it's just a very surreal situation, when like your buddies are these people that, like, my wife kind of trips out that I know the people that I know. And I'm just like, this is my friend since, 5th grade. And because that's the weird, surreal experience of being a child actor. It's very, very surreal. But I think a lot of people in my situation, that grew up in the industry probably have very similar experiences.
Well, you were in some pretty big TV shows when you started out there. I know, like Diff'rent Strokes and Taxi.
I had a good time in the 80s.
Family Ties.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good run.
that must have been quite the experience to be on all these shows that were really like the big shows of that time.
Right? That's you go from, well, I mean, I think a lot of these shows were machines. I mean, they were churning stuff out for years. You go to let's say Diff'rent Strokes, and across the hall is like Silver Spoons, and down the hall is Family Ties and Facts of Life. And you get to know a lot of the directors and producers, and they get to know your name, and you go into the interview and they just saw you on this, and they're looking at your resume, and it's kind of work begets work, that kind of situation. Yeah, you go the route, you do all the sitcoms, and you find yourself doing just the same type of work for different shows. If you're lucky, you wind up doing the episodic route, 1 episode here, 2 episodes there. But one of the great things that I love looking back on is I spent a lot of time on the Universal backlot, and with that, I was doing a lot of work for Amblin, which was Steven Spielberg's production company, and I was doing a lot of voice work for them. Meaning, like, they hire you for. I think one of the first things I was hired for with them was a Robert Redford film called The Natural, and to go in and do voice work for them, which is anybody, any of the kids. Okay, you're going to do pickups for this and that, and okay, you spend a couple days, in the studio doing voice work, and then all of a sudden they tell you, okay, you're gonna come back next week and do 3 days of work for Uncommon Valor, and then and all of a sudden they're showing which other really weird stuff, which wound up turning into Gremlins, and I was doing a lot of voice work, like dialects and things like that. So they had me doing like the Indian slave kids from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And, it's funny that you look back on it now that they had, a 12, 13-year-old kid doing Indian dialects for Indian children. It's kind of just funny. You could never get away with that now.
Right.
Never in a million years could you get away with that. It's just, and then all of a sudden you're working for Amblin, and you're kind of like under contract, and you're doing a few things every week, and you're spending a lot of time on the Universal lot, and you're doing Diff'rent Strokes, and it's a cool place to spend your childhood. And I speak a lot about like friends in the industry that have very similar experiences, and that's the fun thing about you look back at the industry and how different it was back then, and everyone's got the same, like, one of them, all the security, they used to have like, the bicycles that you'd ride, the crew had to ride around the studio lot, or golf carts. And all of us have the same experience where we all stole security golf carts, on the lot, and we're driving it around, 13 years old, driving around golf carts around the studios. Yeah, it's good times. It's a good way to spend your childhood. Well, just work as much as you can.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I know you did some films as well. I remember seeing you in Summer Camp Nightmare. That was kind of a different experience from the other stuff that we would see you in around that time.
So much fun. A nice a summer spent at a summer camp in Malibu, in the hills of Malibu. We shot it all through the summer, and I think I was 14, and tons, I had tons of scenes. Some of them were cut, some of them were kept, but just a lot of activity in the movie. It was originally called the Butterfly Revolution. I guess it was based on a book. Then they found out that Butterfly Revolution wasn't scary enough. So they renamed it Summer Camp Nightmare. I didn't think it was that much of a nightmare. It wasn't really like a horror film. It was kind of a suspense thing, I guess. It was a great place to be 14. They had a lot of extras. They had a lot of girls in bathing suits. And for a 14-year-old kid, there must have been 50 girls my age for the whole summer, just spending their days in bathing suits at a summer camp. I've got great memories of that place. And Chuck Connors, the old star of the movie from The Rifleman and all that, like, I think he was in his 60s then. And my sister, who took me to the set every day, I think she was like, was she 28? And he like hit on her, and he was saying like, Chuck Connor was trying to sleep with you.
Yikes!
It was just so much. It was just such like the '80s were just more of an innocent time where nobody got offended by it. Now today they'd probably like sue him and drag him into court. But it was just kind of funny that Chuck Connors was hitting on my sister. She was like 45 years younger than he was. That's Hollywood. He had every right. He was the star. But that and She's Out of Control was fun. There were. I wish I would have done more films. Did a good amount of TV, tons of voice work. Not a lot of films. I think maybe like 3. Some actors are TV actors, some are film actors. You wind up just, it's not for lack of trying. Did my best. Got some things, didn't get others. Got a lot more voice work in television, which is okay. I'll take it.
Well, and of course, you went on to become the voice of Charlie Brown. It seems kind of like that was more kids doing the voices of kids. And as far as like nowadays, it seems like it's all adults who are pretending to be kids. That was an interesting setup.
That was the great rule that they had. That no adults would ever play the roles. They tried to get you as young as possible, which for some characters it was 8, 9, 10. Others it was 10, 11, 12. I got the job in 1982 and I was 11, and I did it for about 5 years actively until I was about 16. And one of the general rules, if you can drive yourself there, you're too old to play the part. And by 1985, my voice was cracking, and we were doing we were doing musicals and things where I was required to sing, and my voice was just it's horrible. So once we got to the You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and Flash Beagle, and we were doing musicals, I think that's where Peanuts was expanding, meaning that they were going from just specials to we were doing, little mini series, and we were doing, a whole Saturday morning cartoon series and animated musicals and things like that. And they started hiring another Charlie Brown to do other work while I was doing it at the same time. So it was just this massive expansion of the character and the show. I think I was lucky to be a part of it at that time. I think the 80s for me and Peanuts was just this great decade of like expansion for the property. There was so much to do. And, Charles Schulz was involved in the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show, the Saturday morning cartoon series that we were doing. So, and that was an experience that I thought everybody had. Like, I thought everybody had worked with him and met him. And I know a lot of the characters from over the years, and I find that not everybody met him. It's, it was kind of like the minority. I think maybe a few people had met him in passing or at a function, but that can actually say that they worked with him and that they knew him. That's really in the extreme minority, maybe like 5 people. Wow. Like 5 of the kids, and all of the kids that met him. The majority of us spent our time with the 2 main people, which was Bill Melendez, who was the director, lead animator, and Lee Mendelson, who was the Lee Mendelson Productions. They were responsible for producing everything. Sure. So those 2 guys were, I would say, 90% responsible for us and everything. And then when we started the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show in '83, not just meeting Sparky, but being able to talk with him and hear a few stories here and there was, at the time, I didn't realize how amazing it was because you're a kid. And, but as you get older, you're kind of like blown away. Like, did that really happen? It's just, it's a very surreal experience to kind of be a part of that. It's like if you're like meeting and spending time with a president or, like or something big, somebody like really important. as a kid, you don't really care. You're not don't care, but you don't realize the gravity of it. And then you're grown up and you're like, holy crap, did that, that really happen? And, other people tell you how amazing the experience should, like that's just awesome. And you're like, I guess it was. As you get older, you kind of realize how profound the experience was and how it may have shaped you. I mean, it seems, silly, but meeting people like that when you're young and it kind of shapes you.
Sure.
And whether it makes you, a better performer or, I don't know. I think it made me better moving forward. The Charlie Brown experience was the longest job I ever had. It lasted for years, but I would say the only job that I had that I still carry with me. There's, any like doing Silver Spoons or Diff'rent Strokes. There's a lot of people that watched it and loved the show but it's not on everyone's clothes. You know what I mean? It's not in like Charlie Brown is everywhere.
Sure.
And that's just amazing and crazy to just see how the licensing department has done over the last 20 years. It's part of Americana. It's, in the Asian markets, it's part of their school system and how they live the Snoopy stuff is how they live their life. There's cafes and restaurants dedicated to it. So looking back on it and to think that I was a part of that is really something that, it's a massive sense of pride, but it's kind of just a big surreal thing that I kind of lived that life.
Sure.
It's just it's one of my favorite things to look back on. And, I'm just super, super lucky. Super lucky.
Yeah. Sometimes for us here in Minnesota, Charlie Brown's always been a bigger deal, I guess, but you sometimes don't realize, how global that character has become, especially nowadays.
Where is the park where you guys have the full-size statues?
It's up in St. Paul, I believe.
Is that St. Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've seen those. I saw the new ones when they put them in. It's just so cool. It's just so cool. But every time I get an opportunity where I can go there, it's in the winter. I don't want to go to St. Paul in the winter. I hear horrible, horrible things that it's cold. It's got to be cold.
I know for me as a kid, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I probably watched that hundreds of times. I don't know what it was about that, but it was like, it had a hold on me, I think.
I love that. I love that show. I've seen it live a couple times. That was a big one. I mean, that was for me, like it was one of the ones where with most of us, as we go into the studio and if we record a special, it's usually we're by ourselves in the studio. Like we all, maybe there's 4 of us that show up to work and we have to go to school on set for 3 hours. And, so while we're all in school, they'll call one of us, we'll go into the studio, we'll do our lines, we'll go back to school. Maybe we'll go back into the studio, in another hour or so. And that's how all of us do that. But in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, it was the first time that we were all in the same room together, doing chorus work and things like that. So the memory of just being able to interact with another character.
Sure.
Was kind of a fun experience. And that was just completely different than anything any of us have done. But yeah, that was a good one. I like You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I still hum the songs.
Well, Brad, you seem like you're pretty busy now appearing at conventions and stuff like that. I mean, how was that experience for you meeting these fans, people like me who grew up with you and now we're showing our own kids this stuff?
I'd been asked for years, I think just through like the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, I should go to this convention or that convention. And I was invited and I didn't want to go. I didn't really understand. I'd never been to one. I didn't get the convention lifestyle and like why people go. And I didn't think anybody would care. And so I didn't go. And I went to my first show, a local show here in Burbank. And the response was kind of extraordinary. I didn't think people cared about Charlie Brown like that. It was a very profound experience for me to kind of meet the fan. I've never met the fan base before my whole life. And I knew until the internet came out, I had friends for 20 years that they didn't know that I was an actor or did Charlie Brown, because it's not something that you really brag about. Like if you can't prove it, you can't carry around like a DVD and show like if you can't prove it, you don't really talk about it. So going to conventions and meeting fans and understanding what Peanuts and Charlie Brown meant to them, super like shot to the head, just really profound experience. And I don't like to do a lot of conventions, handful a year at most. I think this year I'm doing more because it's the 75th anniversary, big number for us. And there are more invites. A lot of the castmates that I worked with in the past, some of them from other casts from the 70s, we've all gotten together and we like to meet up here, meet up there, do a show. I found that I love it. I like the interaction. It's a lot of fun to hear people's stories and hear what the characters meant to them. That's a really fun experience for me to see it from the other side and just hear what it meant to them. Because I know what it means to me, but that doesn't always equal the same thing. So I hear these great stories, and I have stories of my own that I would love to share with people. And it's a good mix. I like it.
Awesome. Well, Brad, what are you up to now? Are there anything like any projects we should be looking out for? Anything you're working on?
Honestly, as far as entertainment, like industry wise, no, not really. It's a really weird industry right now. The things that I was trying to find was a lot of the companies that I was working with, they don't do work in the States anymore. They do work, they're one of them is in Ireland. And I'm like, why are you in Ireland? And I actually heard the same the same explanation. But Rob Lowe did this interview where he's talking about his game show, and it's actually shot in Ireland. And they're like, why is it in Ireland? Like, isn't that a pain in the butt to get people there just to do the show? And he said, it's cheaper to fly 100 people to Ireland, do the show, put them up in a hotel and fly them home than to just walk across the lot at Paramount and shoot a game show. Wow. So the costs have gotten so high. A lot of the people I worked with have left the state. They've left the country. It's a weird industry right now. I don't know where it's going. So no, I don't have anything industry wise going on. I don't have any jobs that way. The strike dried up a lot of the leads and work that I was getting ready to do. It was all voice work.
Sure.
So, right now it's a few conventions left to do this year. I know I'm going to be in mostly, I think, California stuff for May and Pasadena Comic-Con, things like that. I'm going to go to Pennsylvania in July and, back a lot of it, as much of it as possible in California, because that's where I'm from. It's easier to drive there than fly. But yeah, I'm going to do a few conventions this year and just spend the rest of my 2025 enjoying myself and enjoying the fan base and just saying hello.
Wonderful. Brad, again, it's been an honor speaking with you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care, Dustin. Thanks very much for getting in touch.
And again, that was actor Brad Kesten. You can keep up with him, find out what he's up to and which conventions he'll be at his website, bradkesten.com.